In Paris, food insecurity continues to be a problem for some Chicagoans, made worse by the pandemic. According to Chicago Food Equity Agenda, in late 2020, 19% of people in the Chicago metro region faced food insecurity. Latino communities saw 29% insecurity, and Black communities saw 37%. The city recently announced its first ever food equity policy lead, who will be working alongside community partners to create an equitable food system in Chicago. Tonight, as part of our Firsthand Living in Poverty series, we hear from some of those community partners about the current state of food insecurity in the city and possible solutions. So joining us now are Angela Odoms-Young, Associate Director of Research and Education with the UIC Office of Community Engagement and Neighborhood Health Partnership, and Anton Seals Jr., the co-founder and lead steward at Grow Greater Inglewood. Thanks to you both for joining us. Angela Odoms-Young, let's start with you first, please. How would you describe the current state of food insecurity in Chicago?
I think the numbers really speak to the challenges that people are facing in the city. And that really is defined from an economic standpoint. So if we look at the traditional definition of food insecurity, it really is the fear that you will run out of food and not have money to purchase more. That doesn't capture the geographic inequities that exist as well in the dearth of businesses in certain communities that are run and owned by those communities. So partly when we think about food insecurity, we think of it from an economic perspective. That's the USDA definition. But if we add to that the lack of geographic access, the lack of economic development, it even shows how this is compounded when we look at what's happening right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure the pandemic has exacerbated this issue, something that we've been talking about for the last year and a half. Anton Seals Jr., over to you, though. What do you hope comes of this new food policy equity lead position?
Well, I think one of the big things that we want to do is to be able to strengthen the networks and the different silos that existed in the city, to break down some of those silos so that they can further really impact people who are food insecure. I like the way that Dr. Odoms did lay out in terms of, what people are really dealing with. So the issue of access or being able to afford and sustain is still a tremendous issue. So I think one of the big things that will come from this is the potential growth of, an urban ag and food system that is led by many of the people who have been suffering from the kind of divestment that's happened in many of these communities.
Now, as we mentioned earlier, of course, we know Latino, Black and Brown communities are facing this a lot more. Latino communities in particular seeing 29% food insecurity, Black communities 37%, and that's just last year. Angela, what is the health impact on communities who face this, continuing lack of access to food?
It's significant. Many times we think about it from the perspective of only kind of healthy food, or what we think of as nutrition security. So people can lack access to healthy food options, and nutrition is the backbone of health. Many of the current chronic conditions that are disproportionately affecting Americans are diet related. So diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, all of these have a root in nutrition, in healthy food consumption. So if you lack access, that's going to have an impact on your health. But I think the other things that people don't think about is the food anxiety and the mental health impact that goes along with lacking access to food in general. So food insecurity can cause food anxiety. If you think about a family that might be in a situation where they fear that they're going to run out of food and not have money to purchase more, that can be very challenging.
And I'm sure that kind of anxiety can, like you said, lead to other greater mental health impacts, possibly even depression. But Anton, I want to get you in here a little bit more. One solution that your group works on, of course, is urban farming. How has that been beneficial to the communities that you work in?
Well, one, it just helps. There's a few things. you know, the historical context, in particular for Black people in the city, the history, the cultural context of, you know, our history and legacy from the shores of Western Africa to down south and helping build the you know, this great country and with enormous wealth comes from this kind of agricultural background. So Go Greater Inglewood was birthed out of the desire and the need to make sure that those in the community also look like those in the community, and that we were making sure that we were reflecting and pulling up those kind of historical legacies and assets that already exist in the community. People know how to grow food, so they needed a level of support. And so what we've seen is, and one of the things that will come from this Food Equity Council potentially is making sure that we have real clear policies for people to access land, how to remediate land so that we can actually grow food on there. There's a tremendous amount of folks who have, in particular since the pandemic, one of the big takeaways that we need to continue to build on in public health is around the desire for many people to be much more cognizant of their health and taking their health into their own hands. And that's something I think that we need to continue to build on. And it's a super positive thing, even though people aren't dealing with the COVID vaccine in the same way, the COVID-19 vaccine. But those are some real deep ways that we think that we can push this thing forward.
Okay, and I think, well, that's actually a really good place to leave it. We'll have to leave it there. My thanks to Angela Odoms-Young and Anton Seals Jr. for joining us to discuss food insecurity and potential solutions going forward.
Thank you.
Eat your greens.